everyone to Toni Talks. I am here today with Ashley, and we are talking about some really juicy things. The topic tonight is becoming our best selves, a look at the shadow and porn. So it's going to be fun how we bring that all together. But just a brief bio on Ashley. So Ashley has spent the last 2 years diving deep into her own personal truth, including exploring aspects of her own sexuality. In 2020, after hitting what she considers rock bottom and having to face her demons, she was led to a series of boundary setting and self-love practices. Currently, she's in the middle of a 200-hour yoga teacher training, and she is finding that her career path is evolving into something that feels soul-led. Ashley's hope is to use her personal experience in shadow work and her yoga license to help women step into their happiest self through practices and workshops. So welcome again, and I love all of that. Can you tell us a little bit about you, your journey, who you are?
Yes, thank you.
No
So, I'm Ashley. I'm 28 years old and I am married. So, my husband and I have been married for 4 years now. We've been together for about 10. And we actually recently opened up our marriage to be polyamorous so that I can explore my sexuality, which is a part of my shadow work. And both of us just kind of explore a whole new season in our life. And like Toni said, I am in the middle of my 200-hour yoga teacher training. So I've been doing yoga on and off for the past 7 years, but it's been very inconsistent. So I decided to do this because my friend actually owns her own studio now and she created her own school for this. And I knew I had to be a part of it. And I just did it for myself, just to be disciplined and to learn the roots of yoga. And in doing this, I've been teaching classes and I'm not even done with it yet. I'm just finding myself on this completely new career path, like you said, and really starting to see how I can help other people heal. And a huge part of my healing has been shadow work and really facing those dark spaces within us that we try to avoid. And I used to run from those spaces. And now I see how much of a tool it really is. So my hope with once I get my yoga license is to hold space for people, but especially women, to face these things without fear and just find their most authentic self in a way that feels right for them.
That's awesome. I love that. Let me ask, let's go back. So you said that um, one of the ways you're exploring your shadow and your sexuality is by opening up your marriage. How did that come about? What happened that made you say, hey, this is the next step in my, in my shadow work? And how did that conversation go and feel?
Yeah, so back in 2020, when I hit my rock bottom, I call it, a part of that was acknowledging that I was bisexual, and I never got to explore it because I had a lot of homophobic family members who, looking back, I saw how much shame they had created inside of me and projected onto me. And when I realized that, I had a lot of resentment and anger, but I released a lot of that, and my husband and I tried to explore threesomes, but it just didn't work for a lot of different reasons. And then a couple months ago, I finally realized this is not just something to do, this is a part of finding myself. And I wanted to explore it on my own.
Okay.
And I was just like, you know what? I've worked through so many insecurities and attachment issues in my relationship that I feel secure enough to do this. And we had the conversation, and it's just opened up a whole nother aspect of honesty and communication between us since then.
Yes. I imagine that is going to be probably the game changer. And if that type of relationship will work or not work, is that open communication piece, because just a regular monogamous relationship, goes a little left when that communication piece isn't there. So when there's all these moving pieces, I imagine you really need to open up and share how you're feeling. How has it been going?
It's going okay. I mean, in terms of like at the beginning, it was a little bit, I don't want to say it was too rocky. There was just moments of like, I think fear for both of us and
Mm-hmm.
like a few moments of jealousy, but we just kind of like sat with it and worked through it. So in terms of us, like I feel like we're really good with our communication and our honesty. The issue is that the dating world is really weird and hard.
Yes.
There's a lot of
Yes.
ghosting going on. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who just will like you'll connect with and they just like stop or they ghost you, cancel plans. So that's a little bit weird, but you know, we're only 2 months into it, so
Okay.
I feel hopeful that it'll get better.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess another question is, since you've been with him for 10 years, that means you got together when you were about 18.
Mhm.
I guess how did you explain that this is what you want to do because it's a way to help you heal versus, you've been with him for 10 years and you might just be itching for something new
Yeah.
or
Um,
both?
I think that he has seen like all the things that I've gone through over the past couple years. And for a long like he even when we were younger, he would always just be like, I think that you're bisexual. And I would be like, no, I'm not. I just like love women. He was like, okay. So he's known for a long time. He's really supportive and um I think with us trying to like explore threesomes and it not working out, you know, when I told him like I think that we should be polyamorous, he was like, I kind of figured you would come to this decision because it wasn't working out this way, and it probably is better for us to do it this way because it doesn't come off as like unicorn hunting so much, and it's just like if that happens, I'm open to it, but going out separately, I think just works better. So, you know, he's just a really supportive person and everything that I do, which I'm lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, he had his own difficulties in it with just like his own insecurities and like fears of like, what if we lose each other, you know?
Right, right.
But
Well, I mean, it's still early in it, but I really hope I'd love an update later
yeah,
on how it goes. But you started talking about shadow work, and I know that a lot of what we want to discuss tonight is shadow work because it is so important
yeah,
on each of our spiritual journeys. So I'm going to ask you what is shadow work, but I'm going to just plug my headphones in because they are saying that they want to die. So
yeah.
1 second. Okay. You,
Can you hear me? I heard you for like a second, but now I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So, what is shadow work?
Okay, let's get into shadow work. So shadow work is like these parts of ourselves that we hide from, that we try to avoid, that we bury deep within us. It's the things that we're ashamed of, the things that we're embarrassed by, our pain, our trauma, the authentic parts of ourselves that we have decided to hide deep within us because we were afraid of not being accepted or loved by other people. Um, a few big things in shadow work is people pleasing, codependency, attachment issues, insecurities, you know, to name a few, being a victim, being a martyr. So that's a little bit of what shadow work begins as. And in order to explore it, you have to find a way to, I guess, be honest with yourself about these things, face them, because the shadows, like they're going to, you can bury them as deep as you like, but they're going to find a way out. And if you're
Absolutely.
not careful, if you're not conscious of them, they will find their way out in the most ugly, disgusting ways. which is why I say when I started digging into my shadow work in 2020 is when I feel like I hit a rock bottom and I found myself in different, like, I guess, different distractions and addictions.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, nothing was working because I was trying to avoid these things. And I had spent 26 years avoiding them already. And my
Mm-hmm.
body, my soul was finally like, no, like you have to face this because it doesn't feel right for a reason because this isn't you, really.
Right. Right.
So,
It's not all of you. Like, I love shadow work. Well, I love just the idea of that there's just so much more to us than we can see, like,
mhm,
and like you said, like those parts of us will show they will show in like the most non-opportune time ever, they will definitely come up. And I think another thing that happens with people is they just start blaming other people for things, and I think really um that's really the call to action, to start looking at yourself, looking at your shadow,
mhm,
when you're just blaming other people. um
right. Holding yourself accountable for your life and your actions.
yes.
And um, there was something that I wrote down. Also, like, I think that when you find yourself compromising your own like morals and beliefs, in
Mhm.
order to be accepted by the people, accepted and loved by people, I think that's a surefire sign that shadow work is needed because at the end of the day, like, we are not the cars that we drive or the clothes that we wear or the jobs that we have. We are what is your core values and your morals? If you're
Mhm.
not sticking to those things, then you're not being your most authentic self, you know? So for me, that was a big thing is I would find myself compromising those things because I was afraid of losing certain people. And it made me physically sick. It made me feel so sick that I wasn't sticking to that truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, the people pleasing.
Mhm.
I think that's, big of it. People pleasing, saying yes to things that just aren't right for you. Like there's no part of you of that feels expansive. It feels very contracting.
Right. I found myself saying yes to everything and I was just so exhausted. It's
Yeah.
so freeing to say no and you don't even have to say no. It's just like, I'm not doing it. I don't have to give
Right.
you an explanation.
Right.
It just isn't going to work for me right now. That's it.
No is a complete sentence.
Exactly.
No.
Period.
Yeah. I think that's something that I I want to say that that's something that a lot of us are so used to, because when people are children, we expect children to always say yes and be in agreement
Mhm.
to what we want them to do. So I think, especially for me as a mom, I'm trying to be more conscious of that, because I don't want them to grow up to feel that they have to say yes to things. Um, I want them to grow up and have opinions. I mean, I want them to be respectful. There's
Right.
a respectful way to say no, or I'm not interested in that. But I think I've realized that, a lot of that does come from our childhood, just being forced into these roles, which it's like, it's weird because on one hand, it makes sense, you're a child,
Yeah.
but you're still on this journey too. And you're just like we are humans having this spiritual experience, so are they.
Right.
So for me, I'm trying to be more conscious with my kids to make sure that they don't grow up to be people pleasers, that you know
Yeah, I
so
think that's beautiful that I feel like right now in this time is like a lot of people are very conscious of how they're raising their children to not pass on that cycle. And
mhm,
most things do begin in our childhood. And
yes.
I can say for sure with me with people pleasing was like I had a lot of abandonment issues. I grew up with like parents that were addicts and I grew up with food and money insecurities. So I had certain people in my life family members who they knew this and they had like narcissistic personalities. They were
Mhm,
manipulative and they knew how they could play with my emotions to make me be their puppet.
mhm,
And I think a lot of people deal with that.
yeah.
Um, because those people are unhealed themselves. So they're just repeating the cycle that they think is right.
Yes,
And that's where we come in and we say no more. Like,
absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
done. You know, you cannot use me. Like, I am a human being. I am my own person, and you can't respect me. You don't deserve me.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's great that you're doing the work now. I don't know if you plan to have kids or want to have kids or whatever, but you're like you said, we're kind of breaking that cycle. So however you choose to grow and grow your family, that's
Mhm.
something that they will take with them as they grow up. They won't have some of those same I don't want to say issues, but those same challenges that you
Right.
did. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Um, Let me ask, because you had mentioned about just with your yoga practice and kind of integrating the shadow work with that, like your goal at the end of your training is to create workshops that help to empower women um, and help them step into their happiest self. How are you, I guess, how are you planning to integrate the yoga into the shadow, into that empowering? Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so my friend who owns the studio that we're doing our training at, once I'm finished, like, I can have classes and workshops there if I'd like. So I really want to do shadow work workshops, which is funny that like we're having this conversation because it just like aligned perfectly with what I want to do. I really want to hold space where women can come and we can just sit in circle in community, have open conversations, figure some shit out together, you know,
Mhm.
realize how much we have in common
Yeah.
and realize how we can utilize these tools. And when it comes to yoga, you know, we carry trauma in our body, so we can use movement to release some of that, but also breath work and meditation, mantras, affirmations, journal prompts. I definitely want to do like a burn ceremony at the end of my workshops where we just write down whatever we want to release and just burn it together. You
Okay.
know, so workshops like that where it's very much like sisterhood, you know, not just like let's move our body, no, like let's talk about some things, let's make a plan for how we're going to move forward, and maybe next time we meet we can talk about the growth we've had in the past 2 or 3 months, you know, however long we go.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I love you integrating it all together because we're complex, we're layers. And I think that by integrating those different modalities, the yoga, the breath work, just communication is all important and all will help to, unravel those layers. So I think that's awesome. And I can't wait till how longer do you have for until you're done?
I'll be done at the end of June.
Okay.
So actually it's a part of my final actually is we have to create our own workshop, which will
Mm,
be about 2 hours long, and then we have to do it with our group of people, and we can invite some people from the outside. So I'll probably invite a few friends.
okay.
Um, so yeah, I'll be done at the end of June, and then from there, everything's just happening very quickly. I already have like offers and everything. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll mention, I didn't mention this. You are in Ohio, right?
Mhm.
You're in
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yep.
And you do have a day job, but your goal is to just do like have a soul-led business, like you said, right?
Yeah, so I work in insurance. I do have a small candle business on the side that I'm like relaunching in the next month.
Okay.
But I am also at the end of the year, I'm going to be getting additional training in restorative yoga. So I can work with, I go to a personal gym and I'm having classes there. So I'm going to do like yoga for athletes, like restorative yoga. Really
Mm,
want to help men release some of that and not be so like, you know,
yes.
but I also I'm going to get my Thai massage certification at the end of the year as well. So that's what I'm saying is like, I'm just seeing that this is just like spiraling and I didn't expect it to, but I'm just going with the flow and accepting it.
Yes. Yes. I think that you have such a great like I want to say like you're just so well rounded to like birth all of this in, like, or out. So I'm excited. I hope, I don't know if you plan on doing virtual things or just in-person things. What are your plans with that?
I'm not sure yet because I would like to do virtual to offer it to people who are out of state, but I'm just not sure how I would do that. I guess I probably could do like a Zoom setting where it would be like only a few people could fit in and we can have it be more intimate. But yeah, I would love to do something virtual.
Well, definitely. I would love for, like I said earlier, you to check back with us when you get to that. We will definitely figure out to do some type of virtual retreat with you. I think that would be really powerful for our community
Yeah, that
to
would be
share
fun.
that with us. Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
Um, let's see what else is on our agenda.
I thought that it was like you were talking earlier about layers, and I actually
Mhm.
wrote something down that like aligned perfectly with that. It was basically, and I just spoke about this in a yoga class the other day because when my people are done and they're in their shavasana, their resting pose, I like to read something like so that they leave with a lesson. And it was about self-study and how at our core we are pure consciousness, God, energy, spirit, source, whatever you believe.
Right.
But essentially, like we are, like we create these layers of identities. Like I said
Mhm.
earlier, the car that we drive, the people we hang out with, the clothes we wear, the job we have. And it's, I think that shadow work is so important because it helps us peel those layers away and get back down to who we really are. And I think that we live in a society that we talk so much about self-love and we hear
Mhm.
self-love all the time and we think of face masks and spa days and XYZ. But realistically, like that's not everyone can get that. And that's not self-love, you know, that's just like a surface level thing.
Right.
But being able to peel back those layers so that you feel comfortable enough with yourself to where you don't need anybody and you know that you're good regardless, like that is what self-love is to me. And I know that I kind of just went on like a rant. I don't really know where I'm going with that, but you had mentioned layers and it just like triggered something in me like, oh yeah, I wanted to say that.
No, and I love that because um I'll say that I don't, the physical things that you mentioned, like the spa stuff, the spa days, the face mask, things like that. I think that those are special when it helps with it affects how you feel about yourself. Like when it's not just I will look pretty after this, it's like this time that I'm taking for myself, like that's important.
Right.
Like I'm
It's
making
nice for
time
sure.
for myself. And sometimes that's really hard, especially when we are wearing these different identities, right? Like when we are wearing the identity as of mom and the identity of employee and all these things, or business owner, making that, setting that time aside for us, I think is important. And whatever you do in that time, as long as it's for you,
Yeah.
that I feel is really important. But definitely peeling back the layers to get down to your authentic self. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's a question that I know for me, I've asked at different places in my life. Just like, who am I now? Like, I don't know. Like,
Right.
when you peel back that layer, it's like, okay, now who am I? And then do I need to peel back another layer? Like, is there more? And I think there's always more, like
For sure. Yeah.
always.
And it's hard to say like who am I because we are attached to the things that we do and the
Yeah.
hobbies we have and like the things we like.
Yeah.
And those are a great part of the human experience, absolutely. But it does get difficult to sometimes say, like, who am I? Like, how do I put this into words? Maybe you can't put it into words. It's a way that you live, I guess, maybe. It's an embodiment.
It's like when they ask you, who are you? But it's not your name or anything on like your driver's license
Right.
or your job or like your role. Like, who are you? It's like, well, I don't know.
Right. Like, what do I even
Um,
say to that?
but I think that's what the journey is, right? Like that's the journey we're on, is just discovering who we are, and who we are can always change too. Like I was joking with Astara the other day. I woke up and told her I was a graphic designer that day because I decided I was going to create some graphics.
Yeah,
So any given day you can be who you want to, which I think is important to do.
that's beautiful. Yeah. I actually had a friend who she said something a couple weeks ago. What did she say? Oh, she was like, any day you could wake up and choose to specialize in something. All you have to do is start the research and start the plan. And I was like, wow, that is like profound to me, because that's true. You could literally say, I want to learn how to play piano,
Yeah.
and you can start learning, you know? And that's kind of beautiful. That kind of gives you like a little bit of control on life in an aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Not control on life, but just like, I can do this, I can be the guide in my own life.
I feel like it puts you back in the driver's seat because a lot of us tend to take the back seat to life. There's like a balance, right? Like we want to flow with life, you want to flow, but
Mhm.
you also don't want to just be along for the ride, like
Right,
without being intentional with some of the movements you're making, especially if you are wanting to create or bring some things into your life. You know, there's just that balance. That's one thing about life that I've discovered, is just life is just a balance in everywhere, trying to flow, but also be intentional. Just it's yeah, there's just such a balance needed.
I agree with you. I think that one of the biggest things of my own shadow work was control issues. I tried so desperately to control my life. I had a plan. I tried to control the people in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and it just became a train wreck, because like you can't control that. You can't. You just
Yeah.
have to find a way to go with the flow, and like you said, tweak things as you go, be intentional, and it becomes so much easier when
Can't
you
control
release that.
other people.
And it will create resentment if you try to control other people.
Yeah.
I've
Yes.
definitely learned that, and I think a lot of us women do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell my son that all the time. I'm like, you can't control other people, son. You can't control how other people react. You can't
Right.
control what they do. You can only control yourself. And I feel like that's another one of those shadowy things, is like, learning that you are only in control of yourself. And how you respond to things. You can't control how other people respond to you. I think that's
Right.
something else. I will say, I know we've been talking about shadow work. Um, it's it's not easy.
No.
Um, it's not easy. It's hard sometimes to face those parts of you that you've kept quiet or shadowed for so long. Um,
So true. Yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing to do. Looking back on especially 2020, I'm not a huge crier, but that year, I swear I cried almost every single day. It was the darkest year of my life, but like it was necessary, and I'm so grateful that it happened. So, if anyone's watching this and they're interested in shadow work, or they're considering stepping into it, it's not going to be an easy journey,
right.
but it is not a bad thing. It might feel like a bad thing at first, but it really is a tool that you can utilize throughout your life. Once you kind of experience it a bit and you see the things that you learn from it and how you can use that throughout your life. So it might be a little scary at first, but there's so many resources out there for shadow work now.
I was going to
Podcasts,
ask
TikTok.
you if you had any resources. Maybe afterwards we'll drop some resources down in the chat. Because I know the book that helped me even understand what shadow work was and that I needed it was the dark side of the light chasers by Debbie Ford. That's like a really big shadow work book, and I recommend that to anyone who I can see is like blaming other people, or other people are making them feel away. I'm like, this
Yeah,
book, let's, read this. So we'll drop
I'd
some
be interested in
resources.
that.
Huh?
So I would be interested in that.
Yeah. Well, I'll drop that link below. And if you have any resources, we'll drop those below.
Have you ever done the mirror work book?
Mm-mm.
That was kind of a shadow workbook for me too. It's a 21-day challenge and it's a really easy, quick read and it's pretty cool.
Maybe that'd be something we can do as a community in the Calabash, a 21-day challenge of shadow work.
Yeah, it's just like basically you read your little chapter, you journal, and you talk to yourself in the mirror every day. So it starts off with just saying like, I love you in the mirror every time you pass the mirror. So it's like little things every day.
Okay.
And I think that when I did it, I journaled like 50 pages.
Oh, awesome.
So it's a
Well,
really good thing.
let's chat about that later and see if maybe we can get a little group challenge or a group thing going in the group. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would
Or
be cool.
it probably won't be fun, let me say that, but it will be um it'd be nice to do with people together. So
Yeah, I agree. I would love that. It's been a minute
awesome.
since I've done it.
I know there were a few comments in here just talking about being, Sarah said, I had that thought of doing something different, but then I'm like, what about what I've already started? What I'll say to that, Sarah, is that I struggle with that, starting things, and then I call it, shiny object syndrome, when I start something and I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't do that now. And something that I've learned about myself is that I'm into human design, and one of the things that I've learned is, I'm made to be multifaceted, to explore different things that light me up. And that is probably the case for you too, is that and I want to give you permission, and everyone permission, who feels like they start one thing and then stop because they want to do something else. It's okay. Like, you want to lean into the things that light you up. However, if you find that, like, if you ask yourself, am I stopping because I'm afraid? Am I stopping because of just, something like that? Then that's something deeper, again, that goes into shadow work, to look at that, explore that. But if it's like, you know what, today this lights me up, do it. Like, that's part of, again, like the human experience, as being lit up, because those are the things that get us, that drive us along our journey. So I just wanted to say that.
I struggle with that too. Well, first off, I do also like human design a lot. I'm a manifesting generator.
Oh, am I?
You are too?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna get certified in that this year. That's my thing. And I'm excited.
Oh,
Yeah,
I would love if you do that,
empowering.
because then we can like have a one-on-one and you can break it down for me a little bit more.
Love to, love to. Yeah, when I do, I'm gonna share in the group, and I'm gonna write about some things I'm finding. So I think it's one of those tools that can empower us, give us permission to be ourselves, to be our most authentic self.
Yeah, and
So
like you said, the whole like starting and stopping, like I do that a lot too. And I would kick myself like, what's wrong with you? But it's nice to have those things that whenever you're feeling it, you can just grab it because you have it and just keep doing it. It doesn't have to be something you make money off of. As long as it feeds your soul a little bit, that's all that matters.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's important to lean into what brings us joy. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And we live in a society that really tells us that like if we're not capitalizing off of it, then it's wrong. And I hate that. And I was the person who believed that for the longest time because I'm such a Capricorn, and if it's not logic, if it doesn't make money, it's not logical to me. And have had to tap into my like feminine, more witchy side to like explore that that's not the case at all.
Right.
That's not the case at all. That's an old story that I used to tell myself, and I try not to get caught up in that anymore.
Yes. Well, I think as a whole, society likes that more masculine go, go, go energy versus that more flow and receiving energy. So it's important to tap into that and to lean into that when we can.
For sure.
Um, I wanted to say, because we're talking about shadow and, the kind of like the darker sides of life. And I know one of the things you want to touch on was the porn industry. So one of my partners, Sarah, had heard you on a podcast with a friend talking about um, the porn industry and how it impacts us. That there is a darker side to some of the sites that are very popular. So I would love if you could take a few minutes and just share with us some of your thoughts on it, your findings, how we can, just share with us what you've learned.
Yeah, so I don't even know where to start with porn. I guess I've over the past, I mean, maybe like 5 years, I've become very like conscious of sex workers and, really just respecting them as people and women, and their time and energy is worth money, right? Like this is a job, and a lot of people in society, we don't see it as a job. We don't respect them. And websites like Pornhub, they benefit so much off of them, and they don't pay them enough, but also they don't filter through their content enough to where there's children on there, there's people that are being sex trafficked on there, um, and people are watching that, and they're getting paid for that. And I think that there's also so many. I try not to like kink shame people, but there are some things that are really nasty in the porn industry, like um like tight 18-year-old, or like
Mm-hmm.
daughter-in-law, like just weird stuff like that, where it's like, okay, this is not okay. And I think that everyone jumps to like Pornhub, but as time is, as society is evolving with things like TikTok and like OnlyFans,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of creators that are very conscious about what they create, and they are educating people and creating platforms that are safe, and they talk about consent, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
So I do see that we are evolving um, in that sense, but there's still so much work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, there are some like free porn sites that are like ethical porn. Um, but I guess the way that I see it is like I don't really watch a lot of porn. Um, but if I do, like I'll pay for it just because like it feels right to me to like pay the
Mm-hmm.
creator. And a lot of people are like, they get disgusted by that because they're like, it's for free. Like, why would I pay for it? But it's just, I hope that we as a society can find a way to evolve from that mindset,
Yeah.
and slut shaming.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say pay the creator, because that's what Laughing Goddess Media, which is like the mother of the Calabash and 13 Moons, it's like our mission through Laughing Goddess Media is to pay the creators. And it really wasn't until you said that it like dawned on me, like, well, yeah, they are creating something, like, to the like they're creators too.
Yeah.
And I never thought about paying for it. And I mean, I just never thought about it, but I would pay an artist for their work, or I would, they are providing,
A service.
I was going to say, a service. I never thought about it like that. So
Right.
that's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
what the podcast episode kind of was, is my friends were saying the same thing. They're like, wow, I didn't realize that there was like human trafficking and children on there. I didn't realize they weren't being paid. A lot of we don't think like that because we're so used to it being free and
yeah,
accessible.
yeah.
And I really love that there's creators that are demanding money for their energy and their content. They're not tolerating it anymore. And there's a lot of successful creators out there, and I think that's great, you know. But
I think one of the things too in the shadows of the porn industry is that you think, I guess, like back in the day, maybe it was more fantasy. So
mhm,
like them using titles like that, it does stimulate that part of you that's like, it's safe because it's on the computer or on, you know, back in the day, it was on the video, whatever. But when I guess now it seems like it's more saying these things, but they could be real and no one is really asking like, well, is this actually real? Like, is this really a teen but not an 18-year-old? Like, is it really a teen? Or and I know like the rape fantasies and things like that, like, are they fantasies or are they not? And I guess you don't really think about that so much because you imagine that it's all fantasy.
Right. And it's just like so many people are being exploited because no one's really exploring it because they don't, like you said, you just think that it's just a fake title that's being made. And even if it is a title, it's just like, why are we accepting of something like this? You know, like, why are we accepting of someone waiting for a girl to turn 18 to where she's legal, you know? And that's a part of like the dark side of porn, is where like I fully support porn because it can be an educational thing. But mainstream porn, it's like we were talking about how like no one really talks to girls about sex and about our pleasure and about consent. So how do we learn about sex? We learn about sex from boys. How are boys learning about sex? Mainstream porn. So they're just thinking like that's it. That's all I care about, you know? So in turn, we think that it's a performance for them. It's not about our pleasure. And this is what we and boys are taught from a young age. And it's just like this vicious cycle of just, I don't even know. It's just awful, you know?
It's another thing to reflect on as you get older and learn about and realize like, well, like that wasn't the right story basically for you. Like, that's not how it has to be.
Yeah.
I think that's why they've often said that women learn more about themselves as they get older. And I think that's just because they're coming more away from those first time experiences with those boys that learned that this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
And
And you
then
know
just
what?
maybe also exploring themselves on their own, and learning what it is that turns them on and gets them off, things like that.
Yeah. And you gotta think like mainstream porn really desensitizes boys to actual sex. So as much as I'm an advocate for women, I'm also an advocate for men. You know, like they're not getting their full pleasure out of this because they're not fully present. They're just there to bust a nut. And they don't even get to embody like the experience of human pleasure, which is sad. You know, it's sad for both parties that women are just treated like we're just here to fuck and we're here to put on a performance for men. And you know, I just hate that, you know.
Yeah, agreed.
It's sad, and it creates so much insecurities in women, and it creates problems in relationships and marriages because needs are not being met on both ends. Emotional needs for women, physical needs for men. It's just like this, again, a vicious cycle.
It's an ongoing thing. Yeah. What would you, I guess, what would you say would be a way, in your opinion, to help in that? Or like how should we address maybe the younger generation to help it start to change that story,
Yeah, I definitely think like better sex education would be so important for kids. I mean, I don't even remember what my sex education was at school. It was like a banana with a condom on it, you know? Don't get pregnant. That's essentially what it was. Don't get pregnant. Don't get an STD. I think that really kids should be taught heavily about consent on both ends. And I guess it's like a hard conversation of like, how do you talk to kids about pleasure, you know? Because like, it's a borderline of like education, but also that's kind of creepy. So like, how do we, you know, how does that work?
Right. It's probably not something they should teach in schools.
Right.
However, like maybe schools just teach the basics. But it sounds like it falls on the parent. Ugh, that I can't even, like, the thought of that just,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't want my daughter, like, I can't really speak for my son from that male perspective, but my daughters to go through some of the that roller coaster of what sex brings into your life, like doing it too early or doing it with the wrong person and just all those things. So it is, well, I need to man up, or I don't want to say that, I need to woman up and have that conversation with her earlier, in a way that is, I don't know, it's just really keeping those communication lines open and answering questions, probably more so, like saying, hey, if you have questions, talk to me. And then me just being honest with her versus don't do it, because that's gonna, make her find sources, like, maybe look on the internet or go to her friends and things like that. So I guess it's up to parents, maybe as a thought, to just keep that door open so that you can be honest with them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I mean, like, I don't have kids, so like that is a hard situation to be in. I do have a cousin who's 15, and we've been having conversations around sex, which is really weird. And I have two younger nieces, so I know eventually that'll be a conversation. But I guess like the only way that I could think to explore that in a positive way would be like what you said, is just like having that open communication and holding space for them to where you're not shaming them, because sexual desire is normal, especially when you're a teenager. It's like running rampant through you. So
Yeah.
it's nothing to be ashamed of. And if they have that space where they can go to their parent or a loved one and know that they're not going to get their ass whooped or, but there's a lot of parents that are not. And
Right.
just mind space as they don't, they're just repeating that cycle of like, this is wrong, and if you're doing it, you're in trouble. And then their kid doesn't come to them. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to deal with for sure.
um Astara said we as parents first have to get comfy with sex too. So I think that is true. I guess,
Yeah.
like, if you start to have the uneasiness about discussing it with your child, why? Again, going back to looking at self, why am I uncomfortable with this? What do I need to work through to be able to open for my child to speak with me, or my niece, because I have nieces, I have a bunch of nieces, or for someone, or to just be open back with someone about it who doesn't know, like, it's one thing to have a conversation with you or, my partner, but it is another conversation to have it with someone who is just a sponge ready to absorb the information you're here to share.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, like so many women are in those spaces where they don't know anything about their own pleasure. Um, they're not living in they're not embodying their sexuality because they have
Mhm.
their own shame. And I think that that's where shadow work comes back into play, is doing that work so that you feel comfortable with yourself, so that you can have those conversations with people in your life, especially children and teenagers.
Yeah.
It circles back to this like self, like how can I work on myself so that the people that I interact with, like they can learn something from me and we can learn from each other and end some cycles.
In some cycles, that's what it's about. I
It's
think
just cycles. Life is just cycles.
that's what we're here for, to end some cycles.
Yeah.
There was a comment from Angela, where did it go? It said, yes, open dialogue about chakras, kundalini, the sacredness of sex, the healing and regenerative potential of sex. And I agree, those are all really important things to also remember in conversations about sex.
Yeah. I love chakras and just doing different works around chakras. We're doing that in my training. Every week is a different chakra. And I recently learned about Kundalini rising and all that. So I'm interested to dive more into that.
Mhm. I believe you have some resources for us that are, I guess, more ethical porn sites.
Yeah.
For what do you have for us?
The one is called Velasco. I think it's Bellasco. There's also a website called Try Quinn, and it's like $5 a month, and it's actually audio porn. So there's different people, and they're basically dirty talking you through different scenarios.
How
And
fun.
yeah, it's fun. I never thought about like audio porn, but I came across it and I was like, you know what? I don't always like looking, like I don't really need to look, but listening is kind of interesting. And it is aimed at women, so there's like a lot of like women on there. There's men too, but I really like that. And there's one other website I can't remember, but they're free porn sites. I can send it to like post it in the comments once
Yeah.
we're done and just let you guys know.
Okay. And I think that that's why I guess the genre of erotica has become so popular over the last few years because it is more woman-centered, woman-focused. And luckily, 13 Moons, we have an erotica stream that we offer. And we have some new content dropping on Saturday. So if you are interested in having some, I don't want to say porn, but having some, I guess, women-centered, women-empowered stories that can excite you, we'll say that. I would definitely check out 13 Moons After Dark.
That
And we
sounds
will
awesome.
drop a link for that as well. Um, Let me see. Is there anything else that you have for us? Anything you want to chat about? Do you have any offerings right now?
Um, I guess I wanted to like end on the shadow work thing. Like I know I talked a lot about like um releasing old habits and like setting boundaries. So sometimes like shadow work can sound very scary, but there are other things that are fun in shadow work, like connecting with your sexuality, masturbation, taking sexy pictures. You know, those are
Mhm.
also part of shadow work. So it's not always just crying and losing people. I just want to put that out there that it can be just it's exploration of self in whatever way that feels good. So it can be scary, but it can also be very beautiful. And as for offerings, I don't really have anything right now. Like I said, I'm in the middle of YTT and I will be relaunching my candle business in the next month. But outside of that, no. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, you can. I'll
Yeah.
put my information down below if you want to just follow me and we talk sometimes. That's cool too.
Yes. And like I said, we'd love to have you back just to check in on how your open marriage is going, because I feel that that is something that is more of a conversation that I'm hearing more and more. So we'd
Yeah,
love, to see how that's going. And then, like I mentioned, maybe we can get together and run a shadow work workshop in the Calabash community. And that would be some good experience for you too.
I
With
would
your
love to do that.
So awesome. Let me check to see if there's I have a star dropping some comments. Yes, the erotica stream, 13 Moons After Dark, is erotica for women by women. And I think that's important to mention because just I want to believe that women know what women want,
Yeah,
or it's like writing for yourself, right? Or reading. It's like pretending it's for you,
yeah,
like if I were to write erotica, it'd be what excites me, not what
right.
would excite him. And I think that's where that change of perspective is important.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
I think that if there are any questions in here for Ashley or for myself or about what is going on, we will get to them. We'll drop some links in there. And the last thing I want to mention is that on Friday, April 29th at 8 p.m., we are hosting our first like collaborative event in the Calabash community. It is our first annual virtual poetry jam to honor or to celebrate National Poetry Month. So we've sent out an email about it. We've dropped some details in the chat, in the group. If anyone is interested in being a creator, being a poet, doing some spoken word, we encourage you to reach out to us, get signed up. We encourage you sharing with your audiences, your friends, your family, and getting them to join us. I think it's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited. I'm going to do a piece too. And it'll be my first time. So like there's a lot of fear coming up, but I got it. I'll do it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you do.
And I hope that it is the first time for a lot of people. Like I want it to be an experience that makes people say, you know what, I want to try this. It's something I've always wanted to try. So, so we have that going on. And like I said, 13 Moons After Dark is dropping new content on Saturday. So please get signed up for that if you are interested.
And the Friday, the spoken word starts at 8 o'clock.
8 p.m. Friday the 29th. So in like 2.5 weeks at the end of the month, we're doing. Yep.
Ooh, interesting.
Do you spoken word?
I don't actually, but I don't know.
But do you write at all?
I used to when I was younger.
Okay.
I want to get back into it, but I feel like I don't have that. Like it's hard for me to tap into that part of my creativity. But maybe this will be inspiration. I don't know.
I hope so. I would love to see you there. So I am going to sign off and say good night to everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Ashley, so much for having this conversation with me and with us and sharing. We can't wait to have you back and to just see what else you do.
Thank you so much. I loved it. And I hope you all have a great night. Everyone who's watching, and Toni, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Everyone.